mental illness in America.
And the question we decided to research was how can the United States improve mental health, serious mental health treatments to make it more effective.
And the thesis we came up with was the United States can improve the effectiveness of serious mental health treatment by adding more group homes, changing laws, and increasing awareness.
According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, a serious mental illness is defined as a diagnosable mental or behavioral emotional disorder, excluding developmental or substance use disorder, and of a sufficient duration that has resulted in a serious functional impairment.
And the most common note serious mental illnesses, one is schizophrenia, and then a lot of disorders like dissociative personality, impulse, and addiction disorders.
Okay, so some background of mental health treatment is before 400 BC, mental illness was viewed as religious punishment.
And then soon after that time period, Hippocrates was known to be the first to start treating people with medications.
Yes, and from the 15th century to around 1950s, mental illness asylums were very common. During this time, a woman named Dorothea Dix was a huge advocate for the mentally ill, and she saw how poorly they were being treated, and she brought about mental institutions and provided care for the mentally ill to keep them off the streets and out of jail.
1960s, deinstitutionalization took effect. Deinstitutionalization means that mental health specialists were mistreating the patients by relying on medications instead of actual care in the hospitals. So institutions had to be closed.
And to follow up with what Bailey said, one of the biggest things is the lack of treatment, and that although the patients, while they're in the institutions, may be getting the treatment and the medications they need, once they're released, they fail to continue with the medications.
The individual with the illness is not the only one impacted. People who come in contact with them are also impacted.
And here we have a graph, which I believe is from the Justice Bureau of Statistics. And here there was a survey done, and here in blue is representing the 200,000 that are left homeless. Here in the red are 800,000 that actually received the treatment. Here in the orange is 600,000 that end up in jail, and then the small but still significant amount of people who commit suicide at 34,000.
The lack of treatment leads to problems like crime rates.
As the Washington Post Journal describes, many people with mental illnesses have cognitive difficulties, making it hard to find jobs, which usually they end up on the streets, which also influences substance abuse.
According to an author and scientist, Fletcher, patients who are released too early fail to follow their prescriptions and lead to alcohol and other street drugs. After being released from a mental institution without the proper care, patients are more likely to commit a crime.
And then the most prevalent crime that people with serious mental illnesses commit is actually suicide. And as previously mentioned by Aurora on the other side, 34,000 commit suicide annually. Okay, so according to SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, mental hospital capacity has dwindled while jail and prison capacity has vastly expanded. So that means more mentally ill people are in jails and being incarcerated than they are actually getting treatment in asylums.
In this chart from the Department of Justice in 2004, the rates of mentally ill people in jails differ from the correction facilities. In state prisons, 56.2% are mentally ill. In federal, 44.8% are mentally ill. And in local jails, 64.2%.
And to follow along with FACE research, this statistic here, it is shown that people with mental illnesses on average serve 3 or more incarcerations than somebody who's mentally stable.
Who's impacted?
First, the government is impacted.
Then on a smaller scale, the community
And their families.
And of course, the individual with the mental illness. Solutions that we came up with is greater awareness, group homes, and new laws.
Okay, so our first solution is a preventive solution, meaning that we're aiming to prevent the negative side effects that come along with spread awareness about serious mental illness and mental illnesses in general. According to Robert Byron of the Scientific American Journal, public knowledge of and support are essential to breaking the cycle of crime and stigmatisms. So this means that if we bring awareness to our communities about serious mental illness and mental illnesses, that they could be more open to treatment and they could get more treatment leading to less crimes.
So May is a month dedicated to mental health awareness, and mental health is something that an individual deals with every single day, so we feel that there should be something more done to promote mental illness year-round than just 1 month.
According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, 1 in 4 people are affected with a mental illness, meaning that most of us probably know at least one person with a mental illness.
And to follow up with these statistics, there's actually a study done by the American Psychological Association where there's this part in the brain called the amygdala that has a lot to do with the personality and your behaviors. And there was a test done on a group of 3-year-olds, and those with abnormal sized amygdalas showed more violent behaviors when they were older, so that's pretty easy to screen.
New laws. Institutions only allow 16 beds per patient, and each bed comes with a 14-day limitation. This means that multiple people who have a mental illness will not get the proper care they need and have to be released too early without the medication to cure them. According to the treatment advocacy director, Brian Stetton, if a patient is committed and seems stabilized after 3 days, they have the right to discharge them to free up an extra bed.
And so because of that, since they have the option to release themselves, although they're getting the treatment they need at the time, when they are released, a lot of them fail to keep up on the medications and the things that they need to get better.
Also, by terminating the limitations on Medicaid, more patients will have access to care. Medicaid is a federal system for health insurance for people who can't afford health insurance. More patients with mental illnesses will not be turned away and result to homelessness and criminal activities, and institutions won't be forced to close their doors because of lack of patients.
So our last and final and best solution is to add more group homes. And group homes are smaller homes that house mentally ill patients with also professionals that are obviously very smart in their jobs, so they treat the people that live there well. And it's kind of along the lines of like a retirement home, but for people with mental illness. And so, as stated by the Encyclopedia of Mental Disorders and Sandra L. Friedrichs, a former psychotherapist, they offer a place to stay, a warm environment, and they teach social skills. And also, they're being supervised by the professionals that take care of them. So, they're also more cost-effective than institutions, because a counter argument for like a better solution is to just bring back institutions and regulate them, so the patients aren't being treated badly. But group homes are actually more cost-effective than institutions, so if we just add more group homes instead of bringing back institutions, then we won't have to put so much funding into it.
However, more funding is needed to create these group homes. Angelo McLean, a philosophical doctor and CEO of the National Association of Social Workers, states, the estimated impact in terms of lost productivity in the workplace is approximately $63 billion. If we can get mentally ill people into group homes, we can start cutting costs of productivity and use this money to create more group homes. Doing this, we could reduce the number of mentally ill people in jails and on the streets, and they can learn to contribute in society. Therefore, group homes is our best solution for this complex problem.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So, Bailey, we'll start with you. Describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
So to start a presentation, our original question was different, but it did not fit with the historical lens, which was Faith's, and the political lens, which was mine. So further into our research, we had to go back and re-edit and re-look at our question, and we changed what we were originally researching.
Thank you. Paige, How did the group decide to include Faith's perspective, lens, or conclusions into the overall presentation?
Our overall presentation, we ended up creating a solution that was group homes, and Faith studied a lot on group homes, and also she studied the historical version of that, and she looked back to what we had been doing before, and she provided some solutions to change it, and so we won't keep making the same problems we had before.
Thank you. Aurora, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation, and why?
I think one of the ones that we decided to exclude was a lot of the specific statistics on how much money is spent on prisons and people who need to be institutionalized, because our main focus was on the solutions and that what can help people rather than a lot of the hardcore facts.
Thank you. And last, Faith. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
I think Bailey had the greatest impact on how I viewed the problem, because Bailey's was political, so she had the laws that really, because people get treatment based on the laws and they can't get treatment based on the laws, and it really opened my eyes, because when I was told that there's only 16 beds allowed and they're only allowed to be in hospitals for 2 weeks, even though they still might have a problem, it really opened my eyes to like how people really weren't getting treated.
Thank you.